This is your 5-1 to 5-6 test review. We'll start by solving triangles using law of sines. For 1, you have side lengths of A, C, and B of 7, and then you have angles of A is 50 degrees and C is 75 degrees. To find angle B, we can do 180 minus the sum of angle C, which is 50, plus angle A and angle C, which is 75. So we can use our calculator, which you will need for your test. We do 180 minus the sum of 50 and 75. It gives us that angle B is 55 degrees. From here, we can find side A by using the sine of A, sine of angle A, which is 50, over A, is equal to the sine of B, which is 55, over side B, which is 7. So we're going to cross multiply this. This is going to give us A times sine 55 is equal to 7 sine 50. Divide each side by the sine of 55. And this gives us that A is equal to, again, use your calculator, 7 sine 50 divided by sine 55 is 6.5. We're going to round to the nearest tenth with this. So that's 6.5 for A. And we said that angle B is 55 degrees. So I'm going to just write this in 6.5. So now we just have to find C. So we're going to use sine C, so that's sine 75 over C is equal to the sine of 55 over 7, because that's what's given to us. So we cross multiply. That's C times the sine of 55 is equal to 7 sine 75. Divide each side by the sine of 55. Use your calculator. So 7 sine 75 over the sine of 55 is 8.3. For number 2, we have a triangle with side lengths of A, C, and 7, angle measurements of 15 degrees, 115 degrees, and C. We're going to start by finding angle C. So that's 180 minus 115 and 15. So 180 minus 130 gives us 50 degrees for angle C. From here, we have the side length B, so we're going to use the angle B with side B to find sine 15 over 7 is equal to, let's go sine angle A, so 115 over A. We're going to cross multiply with these, so that's going to give us A times sine 15 is equal to 7 sine 115. Divide each side by the sine of 15. Use your calculator. You have 7 sine 115 over, or divided by sine 15. That gives you 24.5 for A. So the last thing we need to find here is side C. So again, we're going to use the sine of angle B, which is 15 over 7, is equal to sine angle C now, which is 50, right? Yes, 50 over C. Cross multiply. It's going to give you C times sine 15 is equal to 7 sine 50. Divide each side by the sine of 15. Again, use your calculator. So we're going to do 7 sine 50 over sine 15. And that's 20.7. The next part of your review tells us to solve the triangle round lengths to the nearest tenth and angle measurements to the nearest degree. So for 3, we're given angle A is 26 degrees, angle B is 23 degrees, and side A is 49.8. So we're going to use the law of sines and start with sine 26 over 49.8 is equal to sine 23 over B. Cross multiply here. This is going to give us B times the sine of 26 is equal to 49.8 sine 23. Divide each side by the sine of 26 and use your calculator. So you're going to have 49.8 times the sine of 23 over sine 26, and that's 44.4 for B. So the next thing that we can find is angle C by using 180 minus the sum of angle A and angle B. So angle C is equal to 180 minus the sum of 26 and 23. So 26 plus 23, subtract that from 180, that gives us that angle C is 131 degrees. So lastly, we find side C. So that's going to give us the sine of angle A, which we said is 26 over side A, which is 49.8, is equal to sine 131 over C. Cross multiply. That's C times the sine of 26 is equal to 49.8 times the sine of 131. Divide each side by the sine of 26. This gives you that C is equal to 49.8 times the sine of 131 divided by sine 26, 85.7. For our next one, we're given that angle A is 11.2, angle C is 131.6, and side A is 91.2. So we're first going to use law of sines with angle A, side A, and angle C to find side C. You could also find angle B first, it doesn't matter. We don't have that much room here, so let's do that first. So let's find angle B first. So we're going to do 180 minus the sum of 11.2 and 131.6. 11.2 plus 131.6 gives us 37.2 degrees for angle B. So now from here we're going to find side C. So that's the one we're going to use sine A, which is 11.2 over 91.2 is equal to the sine of 131.6 over C. That's going to give us C times the sine of 11.2 is equal to 91.2 times the sine of 131.6. Divide by sine 11.2. Use your calculator. You have 91.2 times the sine of 131.6 over sine of 11.2. And that's 351.1. For your next part, it tells you two sides and an angle of a triangle are given. Determine whether the given measurements produce one triangle, two triangles, or no triangle at all. Solve each triangle that results round lengths to the nearest tenth and angle measurements to the nearest degree. For 5, you have angle A of 30 degrees, side A of 22, and side B of 44. So we're going to start this by using law of sines. So this is going to give us the sine of 30 over 22 is equal to the sine of big B over 44. We're going to cross multiply. That's going to give us 22 sine B is equal to 44 sine 30. Divide each side by the 22. You're going to find angle B by taking the inverse sine of 44 sine 30 over 22. So in your calculator, you're going to do the second sine button. If you can, give yourself your fraction. If not, make sure you use parentheses and divide your stuff. So you're going to do 44 sine 30 over 22. This gives you 90. So angle B is equal to 90 degrees. To keep going with this, we're going to find angle C of this first triangle. So angle C is going to be 180 minus the sum of 30 and 90. So that's 180 minus 120, which is 60 degrees for angle C. To find what C is, we're going to do sine 30 over 22 is equal to sine 60 over C. We're going to cross multiply this. So that's going to give us C times sine 30 is equal to 22 sine 60. Divide each side by the sine of 30. And that's you're going to use your calculator. Do 22 sine 60 over sine 30. And that is 22 square root 3. If we check to see if we have another triangle, we can do that angle B is 180 minus 90, which is 90 degrees. From here, we would find angle C by doing 180 minus the sum of 90 and, 30. So that would give you angle C is equal to 60 degrees, which is the same as the first. So there's no need to keep going. So we would have the same triangle. So there is just one triangle here. For our next example, we're given that angle B is 114 degrees, side B is 14, and side A is 25. To find angle A first, we're going to do the sine of 114 over 4 is equal to the sine of A over 25. Cross multiply, that's 4 times the sine of A is equal to 25 sine 114. Divide each side by the 4. You're going to take the inverse sine of 25 sine 114 over 4. So again, use your calculator. And that's going to give you an error in your domain. So because this gives you an error, this one is not a triangle. If we move to number 7, you have angle B, which is 28 degrees. Side B is 18.4, and side A is 19.6. So we're going to start the same way. So sine 28 over 18.4 is equal to sine A over 19.6. Cross multiply, that's 18.4 sine A is equal to 19.6 sine 28. Divide each side by the 18.4. You're going to do the inverse sine of 19.6 times the sine of 28 all over 18.4. So again, you're using your calculator. Second sine. Put your fraction in. 19.6 times the sine of 28 all over 18.4. And that gives you 30 degrees. So now from here, we're going to find angle C, and that's going to be 180 minus the sum of 28 and 30. And it gives us 122 degrees. So from here, from this triangle, because we haven't tried on the second triangle yet, but for this triangle to find side C, we're going to do sine 28 over 18.4 is equal to the sine of 122 over C. So we're going to cross multiply these. So that's C times the sine of 28 is equal to 18.4 sine 122. Divided by sine 28. Use your calculator. 18.4 sine 122 over sine 28. That gives us 33.2. So you still need to check to see if we have a second triangle. So from the angle A that you found, you're going to take that, subtract it from 180 to find the other angle A, if there's a second triangle. So for triangle 2, angle A, we're going to do 180 minus 30, which gives us 150. If we had a second triangle, that means that angle C is going to equal 180 minus the sum of 150 and angle B, which is 28. So 180 minus the sum of 150 and 28 gives us 2. So we do have a second triangle here because that 2 degrees is a possibility for an angle within that triangle. So I'm going to just underline these so that way we know that these are part of our second triangle, and then we can find side C for that triangle 2. So for triangle 2, side C, we're going to use what they gave us. So that's going to be the sine of 28 degrees over triangle 2. Where is it? 18.4 is equal to the sine of 2 over C. So we're going to cross multiply like we have been. That's going to give us C times the sine of 28 is equal to 18.4 times the sine of 2. So we're going to divide each side by the sine of 28. Use your calculator now. You're going to have fraction 18.4 times the sine of 2 over sine 28. That's going to give you 1.36. That's 1.4 for C. So triangle 2, side C is 1.4. If we look at our next one, number 8, we're finding the side lengths and the angles in the triangle that's given with the angle B of 41 degrees, angle A of, side A of 4 and side B of 3. So we're going to start by doing sine 41 over 3 is equal to sine 4 over, not sine 4, sine A over 4. So cross multiply, that's going to be 3 times sine A is equal to 4 sine 41. So from here, we divide each side by 3. So that gives us angle A is equal to the inverse sine of 4 sine 41 over 3. So we're going to use our calculator. Inverse sine, fraction, 4 sine 41 over 3 gives us 61 degrees for angle A. To find your third angle in that first triangle, we're going to do angle C is equal to 180 minus 41 plus 61 minus 41 plus 61, which gives us 78 degrees. So angle C is 78 degrees. And then we find side C by doing sine 41 over 3 is equal to sine 78 over c. Cross multiply, that gives us c times sine 41 is equal to 3 times sine 78. Divide each side by the sine of 41. Use your calculator. So that's going to be 3 times sine of 78 over sine of 41. So that's 4.5 for C. So that's all for triangle 1. To see if we have a triangle 2, we're going to do 180 minus the side, or angle A, which is 61. That gives us 119 degrees. So that angle A for triangle 2 is going to be 119 degrees. To see if we have an angle C for triangle 2, we would do 180 minus the sum of 119 and the angle B that's given to us, which is 41. So 180 minus 119 plus 41 gives us 20 degrees. That is perfectly okay to have. So that's another angle that we have for our second triangle. To find side C for triangle 2, we're going to do sine, where did it go? Sine 41 over 3 is equal to sine 20 over C. Cross multiply, that's C times sine 41 is equal to 3 times sine 20. Divide each side by sine 41. Use your calculator. You have 3 sine 20 over sine 41. So it's 1.6. And that again is triangle 2. So with this one you have 2 triangles, and then with the one that you had before this, that you had 2 triangles. Your next section is asking you to find the area of the triangle given the measurements. So with these, we're going to use the area is equal to the side times the sine of the angle, all divided by 2. So for number 9, we're given the angle measurement A of 30 degrees, side B of 15, and side C of 5. So this means we are going to have the area is equal to 15 times 5 times the sine of 30, all divided by 2. We're rounding to the nearest square unit. We are working with inches on this one. So 15 times 5 times the sine of 30 divided by 2 gives us 75 over 4, which is 18.75. If we round to the nearest square unit, that's 19 inches squared. For number 10, we have angle B is 10 degrees, side A is 4, and side C is 7. So our area is going to equal 4 times 7 times the sine of 10 all over 2. So using our calculator, 4 times 7 times the sine of 10 divided by 2 gives us 2.43. If we're rounding to the nearest unit, that's 2 feet squared. For our next part, we are solving the triangle using law of cosines. So for this one, we're given an A of 6, B of 9, C of 12. That C is uppercase, so that means that that 12 is a 12 degrees. So we're going to start with C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times B times the cosine of C. So that means we're going to have C squared is equal to 6 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 6 times 9 times the cosine of 12. I'm going to just plug this all into my calculator. So I have 6 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 6 times 9 times the cosine of 12. That gives us 11.36, so on. We take the square root of that, and that's going to be C is equal to 3 nearest tenth. 3.4. So that's C. Now that we have a side C and an angle C, we can use law of sines. So we're going to use law of sines with finding angle B, since that's the next largest side length. So with this, we're going to have sine 12 over 3.4 is equal to sine B over 9. Cross multiply, that's 3.4 times sine B is equal to 9 sine 12. Divide each side by the 3.4. You're going to take the inverse sine, so angle B is going to equal the inverse sine of 9 sine 12 over 3.4. Using your calculator, inverse sine of 9 sine 12 over 3.4 gives us 33.39. So we're going to say that angle B is 33 degrees. Lastly, we find angle A. So to find angle A, we're just going to do 180 minus the sum of angle B and angle C. So that's 33 and 12. That 180 minus the sum of 33 and 12 gives us 135 degrees. Next, for 14, we have side lengths of 9, 6.2, and 4.9. Largest side length there is side A. So we're going to use law of cosines to start off, so that we're going to have 9 squared is equal to, let's go 6.2 squared plus 4.9 squared is minus 2 times 6.2 times 4.9 times the cosine of angle A. That 9 squared is 81. The 6.2 squared is 38.44. The 4.9 squared is 24.01. The negative 2 times 6.2 times 4.9 gives us negative 60.76 cosine A. So from here we can add the 38.44 and the 24.01. That gives us 81 is equal to 62.45 minus 60.76 cosine A. Subtract the 62.45 over. So 81 minus 62.45 gives us 18.85 is equal to negative 60.76 cosine A. We're going to divide each side by the negative 60.76. So to find the angle A, we're going to take the inverse cosine of 18.85 over negative 60.76. So the inverse cosine of 18.85 over negative 60.76 gives us 108. So angle A is equal to 108 degrees. To find our next angle, which we can do with angle B, we are going to do law of sines. So that's going to give us the sine of 108 over 9 is equal to the sine of B over 6.2. Cross multiply, that's 9 times sine B is equal to 6.2 sine 108. We're going to divide each side by the 9. So it's going to give us angle B is equal to the inverse sine of 6.2 sine 108 over 9. So use your calculator. 6.2 sine 108 over 9 gives us angle B of 41 degrees. from here, we got to find angle C. So let me just put a box around this. Angle C is going to be 180 degrees minus the sum of 108 and 41. And that gives us 31 degrees for angle C. For our next one, we have side lengths of B, which is 7, C, which is 8, and an angle measurement of A, which is 1. Let's change this angle measurement to be 109. Just makes things a little bit easier on us. So, first thing we're going to do is find side A. So we can do that using law of cosines. So that's going to be A squared is equal to 7 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 7 times 8 times the cosine of 109. You can use your calculator with this. Just remember to find A, you're taking the square root of all of that. So if we use our calculator, I'm going to plug in my square root symbol, then do 7 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 7 times 8 times the cosine of 109. Hit enter, and that gives me 12.2 for side A. So from here, we're going to find angle B using, angle C, since C is the next largest side length, by using law of sines. So we're going to do sine C over 8 is equal to sine 109 over 12.2. Cross multiply, that gives you 12.2 sine C is equal to 8 sine 109. So from here, we're going to divide each side by the 12.2. And then we're going to find angle C by doing the inverse sine of 8 sine 109 over 12.2. So we're going to use our calculator. 8 sine 109 over 12.2. And that gives us 38 degrees. Lastly, we find angle B. So angle B we can find by doing 108 minus the sum of 38 and 109. So 180 minus the sum of 38 plus 109 is 33 degrees. Our next part tells us to use Heron's formula in order to solve for the area, or find the area and round to the nearest square unit. With these, we got to find for S first. We're going to add up all of our side lengths, divide by 2. That's going to give us S. And then we're going to take the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. Again, use your calculator for this. Everything in here you're using your calculator for. So first thing we're going to do is find S. For 18, we're given A of 16 yards, B of 13 yards, C of 16 yards. So to find S, we're going to do 16 plus 13 plus 16 divided by 2. So 16 plus 13 plus 16 all divided by 2 gives us 22.5. To find the area, we're going to take the square root of 22.5 times 22.5 minus 16 times 22.5 minus 13 times 22.5 minus 16. And we're going to round this to the nearest square unit. So you're going to use your calculator. Square root of 22.5 times 22.5 minus 16 times 22.5 minus 13 times 22.5 minus 16 gives us 95 yards squared. For 19, you have A is 12 meters, B is 18 meters, and C is 7 meters. So S is going to be 12 plus 18 plus 7 divided by 2. 12 plus 18 plus 7, all divided by 2, gives us 18.5. So in our formula, we're going to have the square root of 18.5 times 18.5 minus 2, or sorry, minus 12, times 18.5 minus 18, times 18.5 minus 7. Again, use your calculator. And it should give you 26.29. So we round to the nearest whole number, and that's going to give us an area of 26 meters squared. For our last example, we're given that cosecant theta is the negative square root 5. Remember, cosecant is r over y. R is always positive, so that y is going to be negative, which means r is the square root of 5, and y is the negative 1. And it tells you that tangent theta is greater than 0, so tangent is y over x, and that's greater than 0. We already said that y is negative, so x has to be negative as well. To find what x is, we're going to use r is equal to the square root of x squared plus y squared. So that means that we're going to have the square root of 5 is equal to the square root of x squared plus negative 1 squared. So that means that this is going to be the square root of 5 is equal to the square root of x squared plus 1. We take both sides and square it to get rid of those radicals. We're going to have 5 is equal to x squared plus 1. Subtract the 1 over. That gives us x squared is equal to 4. Take the square root of both sides. We said that x is going to be negative, so that's negative 2 for x. So we have x is equal to negative 2, y is equal to negative 1, and r is equal to the square root of 5. So this means that our sine theta is y over r, so that's going to give us negative 1 over the square root of 5. You simplify that by rationalizing the denominator, and that's the negative square root 5 over 5. For cosecant, or sorry, for cosine, that's x over r, so that's going to give us negative 2 over the square root of 5. Rationalize your denominator, that's negative 2 square root 5 over 5. Tangent theta, we're going to have negative 1 over negative 2, which simplifies to be 1 over 2. Cosecant theta, we were already told that that's the negative square root 5, so we just write that down. Then secant theta, you're going to have r over x, so that's going to give you the square root of 5 over negative 2. You can leave it that way, or you can pull the negative up to the square root of 5. Doesn't matter. I would leave it that way because it's already done. And then for your cotangent, you'd have negative 2 over negative 1, which just simplifies to positive 2.